Hello everyone, this is Locko S, and today we're going over the NATO air-to-air weapons that are currently in DCS World. Um, Currently, the NATO range of air-to weapons in DCS World currently revolves around a few families of missiles from both the USA and France. Missile ranges are given in what I found to be effective ranges against fighter-sized and maneuvering targets on roughly head-on aspect for around 10,000 feet for your radar-guided Fox 1s and Fox 3s, and Fox 2s I give them out usually when you're tailing the target in a dogfight relatively close on the deck. Your mileage will vary based on the target's aspect, altitude, and a whole bunch of other factors. Also, keep in mind, DCS occasionally does change the missile performance. Uh, it's not super common, but they will every once in a while go through and refactor their missiles. As a quick, although thankfully I should mention that usually I have been noticing that they've been relatively stable lately, so don't expect massive changes in performance. Usually they're just like a mile or two. Now that matters sometimes if you're in the competitive environment, but for player versus AI, you'll be fine. As a quick primer, Fox 1 missiles are radar guided, Fox 2 are infrared guided, and Fox 3 have an internal radar. Fox 1 missiles require a single target track all the way to the target. Fox 2 missiles require a heat signature to lock onto, and Fox 3 missiles require a trackwell scan lock to at least fire upon, and then it can be fired upon multiple trackwell scan targets. Also, Fox 2 and Fox 3 weapons are prone to switching targets when multiple targets are close by, so be careful when firing into a dogfight where friendlies are already engaged in front of you. We're going to start with our shorter range missiles and work to the longer range missiles. So, let's start with the Fox 2 IR guided missiles. We have the AIM-9 family. Older AIM-9 series are rear aspect, and while more modern versions include better performance overall and include all aspect seekers. However, your older variants of the AIM-9, I don't know if it goes back all the way to the Lima. Lima's the oldest one I know of off the top of my head, but there's also the AIM-9B. Those are rear aspect seekers. Effective range is limited to roughly 2 to 3 miles in situations that you'll be using them in for the most part, which is your dogfights, you're in close, you're already engaged with your Fox 1s, and you're trying to merge with an enemy. One big thing to be aware of is that your AIM-9 will kill most fighter-sized targets, but larger targets, CAS aircraft, and helicopters might survive the hit. The good news is that if those larger targets do survive the initial AIM-9 hit, they will generally be damaged enough to make a follow-up gun's kill relatively easy. They'll usually end up taking out parts of their wing, maybe an engine or two, and then they'll slow down. They'll get less maneuverable. They'll be way easier to see because they'll start leaking fuel and hydraulics. So you'll be able to pick them up easier and get the guns kill. Also note that almost pretty much every single NATO aircraft in the inventory can at least equip a pair of sidewinders for self-defense, and it's highly recommended that you do so. I do know that even some trainer aircraft like the C-101 carry AIM-9s. Your A4E Skyhawks can carry them. A-10Cs and A-10s can carry a pair of sidewinders. Highly recommend that pretty much every aircraft and every mission that you fly in, you pick up a pair of sidewinders just for self-defense. The M version is the one you're going to be picking up for most of your missions. The M version is an all-aspect seeker and is carried with most aircraft, and the P5 is also a relative equivalent to the M version. It also has an all-aspect seeker head. Older models generally have worse performance and are limited to rear aspect shots only. However, a good number of them, like I think it's you have to go decently far back, and I think it's like the Lima variant that's a rear aspect only. Also, if you see a missile called the GAR-8 in a loadout, the GAR-8 is an older name for what then became the AIM-9B, and the AIM-9B is one of the first Sidewinder versions. So that one obviously is a rear aspect only, a fairly short-ranged AIM-9 variant that eats flares instead of targets. So keep in mind that it is there for historical missions, and even the F-86 Sabre can carry the AIM-9B. The only other aircraft that I know of that can carry the AIM-9B off the top of my head is the F-4E, the F-5E Tiger II, and I think maybe even the F-4E might be able to carry AIM-9Bs. On a separate note, the AIM-9X is a very unique and deadly Sidewinder variation. It's only found on the F-16C and FA-18C. Its capabilities are significantly improved over the other AIM-9s with its dogfighting capabilities because it has a high off-bore sight sensor that allows you to track and fire on targets at extreme angles from your own aircraft. And with its thrust vectoring rocket motor, it can also then turn really tightly to get those shots that are high off-bore sight. So it's the perfect missile for night fights. Just be aware that some servers don't allow you to have the X version as an option, or it's limited in some capacity. Like it costs points to use. So I wouldn't necessarily rely on the AIM-9X. Just be aware that it is a tool that you can use and you can have a lot of fun with, but don't get too reliant on it, or else you'll get stuck on certain missions in certain servers. So, moving over to France for these next couple of missiles. The Magic series of Fox 2 missiles are going to be your AIM-9 equivalents for France. They have roughly equivalent performance and lethality. The Magic 1 is only found in the Mirage F1, and it's an older missile with a rear aspect seeker. The Magic 2 is its upgraded variant, and it's found on both Mirage F1 and 2000C, and it has an all-aspect seeker. Of note for the Mirage 2000, if you see the option on your loadout to have a Mirage 2000C Magic 2 with I think it's DDM, or DMM, I would pick that. The DMM is basically a missile warning receiver that's equipped to the pylon, not to the missile, obviously. So you can use that to add some extra sensor capability to the Mirage, and you'll be able to pick up, you'll get missile warnings that if you get a missile fired in the area, it'll pick it up and warn you. So always, if you have the option to equip the missile warning system, equip it on the Mirage 2000C. Next up, we have the R530 series, and it's a good transition into the next set of missiles because there are both infrared and radar-guided versions. Only the Mirage F1 can use them, and both have about a 5-mile range, although you really want to use the 5-mile range. You only want to engage targets at 5 miles after like heavy bombers at high altitude. Realistically, you're only going to want to get 3 miles against like fighter-sized targets. However, to make up for their short range, they have an extremely powerful warhead. They can down most large aircraft in a single hit, and this is definitely starting to transition to your Fox 1s, where these are more or less meant for attacking ground attack aircraft and bombers with that large warhead that can completely shred any target that you'll come across. Keep a note with the R530 series, a little bit of an oddity note with the loadout for the F1. You can only mount either a single one on the belly or a pair on the wings. That's just how it goes. I'll also be going up in the video. I'll make sure to point out which one is the IR seeker head and the radar seeker head. The seeker head, the missiles actually do look different with their seeker heads. And I do also, I do believe also that the seeker head on the 530 IR is also rear aspect. Going over to the next missile, we have the Super 530, which is, I wouldn't even say that's not necessarily even an upgrade. It's a completely redesigned missile. It's extremely powerful for the Mirage series of aircraft. Again, like I mentioned, Fox 1, it's only found in the Mirage series of aircraft. It's very similar to the 530 in that it's a very hard-hitting missile. So you can easily expect to shred bombers and close air support aircraft and helicopters with the 530. The good news, however, is that unlike the 530, the Super's range is improved out to 7 miles. I get reliable kills with the Super 530 around 7 miles. At 5 miles, it's pretty deadly. Um, the biggest disadvantage, honestly, with the Super 530s are that the Mirage F1 and 2000C can only usually carry a pair of these. But it's at least, but on the other hand, it is a very good missile for those aircraft. Moving out of the French aircraft lineup, we're going back to the U.S.-made missiles for the remainder. The AIM-9 Sparrow, the AIM-7 Sparrow, is a Fox 1 missile that has a range of about 9 miles head-on, although sort of like with the Super 530, against fighter-sized targets, 7 miles is also it's where it gets really effective. Also, like the Super 530, it hits like a freight truck. I generally have had plenty of successes downing most aircraft with a single AIM-7, like the Super 530. So definitely a worthy missile to carry along with you. And I should also mention that the MH model has the ability to do a home in on jamming a target. It has the ability to home in on jamming targets. So if your target is jamming you, you don't have to worry about getting a lock on it. You can literally, if you have an MH model, fire the AIM-7 Sparrow MH on that jamming target, and it will actually home in on the jamming signal. And it's as good as a regular Fox 1 shot. And it's also probably deadly because your enemy probably isn't expecting to have a missile fired on it while it's jamming. The good news is that this missile, the AIM-7, is found on the majority of American aircraft that have air-to-air as a primary focus. The only downside compared to the next missile, the AIM-120s, is that the AIM-7 is a bigger, and usually you can generally carry fewer AIM-7s on your aircraft. It should be noted that one of the good news is that the AIM-7 is pretty much unrestricted on the vast majority of servers, where you might not be able to use AIM-20s, or you might have to pay a point cost for AIM-20s. And the fact that you don't have to pay a point cost on a lot of these servers or be restricted in the use of AIM-7s, plus the fact that it's a very powerful missile that when it hits, it can reliably kill targets, I highly recommend taking AIM-7s, and I generally prefer on strike missions to carry AIM-7s as opposed to AIM-120s. Also, I should mention that the common AIM-9s, the AIM-7 variant that you'll have in missions is the M variant. If you can carry an MH, it's equivalent to the M variant, just the MH has like home on jamming capabilities. I don't normally encounter jamming aircraft, so I usually just pick up M's or MHs. They're kind of interchangeable. The AIM-7E is also available in-game for certain aircraft as an older variant of the AIM-7 Sparrow. It has shorter range, but higher acceleration, and it's actually better arguably against more fighter-sized targets with its higher acceleration and speed. But even then, the AIM-7 Sparrow, you're gonna get a lot of use out of it. It's very effective. I highly recommend it. Now, moving on to those Fox 3 missiles, the AIM-120 in DCS has two versions, the B and C model. The difference between the B and C are the fins on the body. The C model has clipped fins, and thus the B model, with its bigger fins, has better turning capabilities, while the C model has less drag and thus more range. Although both are effective to at least 10 miles out, especially against your fighter-sized targets, you can have effective ranges up to 15 if you get into the right conditions. And you can obviously shoot AIM-120s at further ranges than 15. It's just that most of the time, if you shoot at a target at longer than 15, they're going to dodge, evade, and you're not going to necessarily kill them. You'll force them defensive, which is also arguably what you want to do. But if you're trying to actually kill your target, you'll want to wait until you're within, at the very most, 15, ideally within 10 miles. The advantages of this missile are its fire and forget. and you can fire on more than one target if you get into like the right profile and your right angles on your targets, and it's very popular. You also have the ability to carry more AIM-120s over AIM-7s on select airframes like the Hornet. I should also mention that if you're an F-16 driver, you're not going to have the option to carry AIM-7s, so you're going to be restricted to AIM-9s and AIM-120s. And just because of the sheer number of AIM-120s you can carry, it does actually make it easy to do multiple attacks, or engage multiple targets at once, because you could ripple off a few and then crank, guide them in, and then go in for a second attack. The good news is that AIM-120s are perfectly fine against fighter-sized targets, but one kind of overlooked weakness of the AIM-120 is its warhead is kind of mid. It's potent enough to take out most fighters, or at the very least damage them enough that they'll start limping back to base if they're AI. Some of the better armored close air support aircraft and larger support aircraft, you might be able to kill them with an AIM-120 shot, or you might just severely damage them and they'll still try to continue on their mission. So if you want to make sure you actually get a kill on those, you might need to fire off a second missile, or if you're in range, follow up with an AIM-9 or a gun scale. So in that case, I would actually, if you're trying to kill like an AWAC, like the A-50 AWACS, you're better off shooting a pair of AIM-120s and making sure that it's killed, and to see if one missile has done the job. Also, be aware that like the AIM-9X, it's not uncommon for AIM-120s to be unavailable or limited on some servers. And also, while everyone likes to carry the C variant for its extended range and clip wingtips, don't overlook the B model. The B model has better turning capabilities, and it's better in a more close-in fight. Lastly, we have the AIM-54 Phoenix, exclusive to the F-14 Tomcat. This is the longest range air-to-air missile players have access to, at least at the moment. Eurofighter might come in and change up that meta. The Tomcat's radar is pretty much the only limiting factor in shooting against fighter-sized targets. You're just waiting basically for the Tomcat's radar to pick up the smaller-sized flare targets. Other than that, and even against bombers, between 30 and 20 miles, it's deadly against pretty much everything. So, even like your fighter-sized targets, 30 miles, AIM-54 Phoenix shot is deadly against you. 20 miles, it's even more so. It's also one of the most powerful missiles in game, down pretty much able to down every aircraft in a single hit. And you can even potentially hit multiple aircraft if they are in a tight formation. The warhead is that powerful. Do also keep in mind that the missile is large, and it's definitely not a dogfighting missile. It still has respectable performance against fighters at range if they don't dodge in time. And at the very least, you can get those fighters to go cold. So especially because it's not the best choice for close-in dogfights, you always want to, with your Tomcat loadouts, go with a maximum of 4 Phoenixes. And I do even believe that in real life, they stuck to 4 Phoenixes as their max loadout for AIM-54s. Speaking of loadouts, the A model for your Phoenix is an older seeker, an older analog seeker, and the C is an improved digital sensor. So if you have the option, go with your C models. And the Mark 47 and Mark 60 are 2 different motors, with the Mark 60 being a newer, cleaner burning motor, making it harder to see the launch. And like I mentioned, Tomcat 6 missiles is the max loadout. However, a more practical loadout is 4 Phoenixes, and then you want a pair of Sparrows and Sidewinders for your close-in fights. And that's it for all the missiles that are currently in DCS that are air-to-air focused for the NATO side of the world. And that's pretty much it for this video, and I'll see you all around when we talk about air-to-ground ordnance next time. And this has been Lockyo, guys. Signing out. Make sure to like and subscribe for more of these videos.